A favorite segment on our Wham Bam Dashcam channel is the weekly Tesla behaving badly. Today we've collected 20 of our favorites for you to enjoy, and hopefully you like the jingle because you're about to hear it a lot. It's Wham Bam's Worst Tesla Drivers, Volume 1. Dima captured this week's Tesla behaving badly while on his way home from work. Watch for a red Model S from the right.
That Tesla man can't drive. That Tesla man can't drive.
The Model S blew through a red light and T-boned a silver Ford. Dima stopped and gave the Ford driver a copy of his dashcam video. Thankfully, they weren't injured. You asked for more clips from bicycles, but we rarely have any sent in. Thankfully, David sent us this one, which also happens to be this week's Tesla behaving badly.
Tesla man can't drive.
On his way home from work, David was passed by a Tesla that came within inches of him and his e-bike as they both rounded a bend. David honked his horn, but the Tesla driver didn't seem to care. David was driving down a Michigan highway when he spotted this week's Tesla behaving badly.
That Tesla man can't drive. That Tesla man can't drive.
A Model X driver nearly sideswiped a Chevy sedan before braking hard to avoid rear-ending a Ford Explorer. Maybe all that instant torque is going to their head. Kaveh was driving up I-5 when he watched the driver of an Acura merge in front of a Tesla. For whatever reason, the Tesla driver didn't slow down, instead rear-ending the Acura.
That Tesla man can't drive.
Kaveh pulled over and exchanged info with both drivers, sending them his dashcam footage the next day. The Tesla driver called and thanked him, but he never heard back from the Acura driver. Kaveh told us that if you have a dashcam and record an incident, pull over and share it with the people involved. You never know how much time and pain you might be saving them. Ronaldo was on his way to pick up his girlfriend from work when he encountered this week's Tesla behaving badly. Okay, let's roll the jingle and watch this Tesla driver ignore the road markings.
That Tesla man can't drive. That Tesla man can't drive. That Tesla man can't drive. That Tesla man can't drive.
Ronaldo slammed on the brakes and honked to avoid a collision. He's just glad he was paying attention. This week's bad Tesla driver comes to us from a submitter in Malaysia who watched them overcorrect when another driver got too close for comfort.
That Tesla man can't drive. That Tesla man can't drive.
After swerving hard, the Tesla lost control and slammed into the car the driver had been trying to avoid. Why do you think this happened? Let us know in a comment and keep sending in your bad Tesla videos. Link in the description. Morgan was waiting in a left turn lane behind a Tesla Model 3. When the light turned green, the other driver didn't move, so Morgan gave them a friendly honk. What they did next makes them this week's Tesla behaving badly.
That Tesla man can't drive. That Tesla man can't drive.
After both drivers had made a U-turn, the Model 3 driver intentionally cut Morgan off and stayed ahead of him, eventually forcing him to a complete stop even though there was no traffic ahead. Eventually, Morgan was able to get ahead of the Tesla driver, but then he followed Morgan until he was able to again cut him off and brake check him. Morgan was able to get away from the road-raging Tesla driver, but by then he was already on the phone with 911. He ended up making a police report, including his dashcam footage as evidence, and he's now waiting for a follow-up. Ricky captured this week's Tesla behaving badly, and it looks like this time the Tesla driver got taught a little lesson. When the Tesla driver merged into the side of Ricky's lifted Ram 2500, her door made contact with his tire, marking up the door but leaving no damage to Ricky's truck.
That Tesla man can't drive.
Both drivers stopped and checked for damage. Since Ricky's truck was fine, they both agreed to part ways without any further action, except for sending his dashcam footage to Wham Bam Dashcam, that is. This week's Tesla behaving badly features not one, but two Teslas. When one Tesla driver behaved badly, the other reacted quickly to avoid a collision.
Tesla man can't drive. That Tesla man can't drive.
This is just a hunch, but I'm guessing that wasn't autopilot pulling off that moose test maneuver. Don't forget to send us your Tesla behaving badly clips using the link in the description.
Okay, Wham Baam Teslacam moment.
This submitter was taking his son to school when he encountered this week's Tesla behaving badly.
That Tesla man can't drive. That Tesla man can't drive.
The Tesla driver used a left turn lane to cut around everyone else before speeding off. Ironically, our submitter was able to catch up with him not long after without even breaking the speed limit. Hey, maybe we should cut him some slack. He's obviously just trying to get there, wherever there is. Don't worry, we've still got a Tesla behaving badly clip for you, but we need more. Use the link in the description to send us your dashcam videos. Angel watched a Tesla driver in a left turn lane decide to turn right instead, cutting off a van in the process.
That Tesla man can't drive. That Tesla man can't drive.
Thankfully, the van was being operated by a better driver than the Tesla was, and no collision occurred. Personally, I think that was 100% human error. Autopilot is pretty smart, but human drivers do stuff like this all the time. This submitter was driving in Seattle when he watched something drive past him in a bus-only lane, but it wasn't a bus. It was this week's Tesla behaving badly.
That Tesla man can't drive. That Tesla man can't drive.
The Tesla driver used the bus lane to cut around traffic that was getting onto the interstate. Has anybody else noticed that most of the bad Tesla drivers are in white Teslas, the only color that doesn't cost extra? The free color option was recently changed to midnight silver, so we'll have to see if we start seeing more bad drivers in silver Teslas. The Orr family was driving home after a vacation when they cut through San Rafael to avoid highway traffic, which they told us was a mistake. As they approached a stop sign, they encountered this week's Tesla behaving badly.
That Tesla man can't drive. That Tesla man can't drive. Tesla man can't drive.
The driver of a Model X went into the oncoming lane before running the stop sign to make a left turn. They told us they just laughed it off, and thankfully, the only thing damaged was Tesla's reputation. Wes, the one who sent us the video, told us that he's a Tesla geek who watches Wham Baam Teslacam every Sunday after church, and Wham Baam Dashcam whenever he sees them. Thanks, Wes! Viet encountered this week's Tesla behaving badly while on the way home.
That Tesla man can't drive. That Tesla man can't drive.
The Tesla driver turned into the wrong lane, nearly colliding with Viet's Mazda CX-30. Thankfully, Viet was paying attention and swerved to avoid colliding with the white Model 3. Joshua was riding his Harley home from work when he pulled up to a traffic light. With a pedestrian making his way across the crosswalk, Joshua witnessed this week's Tesla behaving badly.
That Tesla man can't drive. That Tesla man can't drive.
Both Joshua and the pedestrian were dumbstruck when a white Model Y cruised right through the red light. Joshua proceeded home very cautiously, knowing the Tesla driver could have killed him if he'd been just one lane over. Speaking of Teslas, Will and Em were driving behind a Tesla when the driver made an illegal U-turn right in front of them, forcing them to slam on the brakes to avoid a collision.
That Tesla man can't drive.
That Tesla driver is lucky that Will and Em were paying attention. They were in a Honda Pilot. Thankfully, this ended up being a Tesla behaving badly video and not a Honda bump. We've already seen plenty of bad drivers in this episode, but we know there's one particular kind of bad driver you're all waiting to see. This week's Tesla behaving badly.
That Tesla man can't drive.
Nick watched a Tesla driver skip around traffic by going straight through an intersection from a turn lane. He pointed out that they did give a nice wave to absolve their sin. Ramton was driving his Polestar when he witnessed this week's Tesla behaving badly.
That Tesla man can't drive. That Tesla man
The driver of a black Model 3 used a straight-only lane to get into an intersection before turning right instead. Does anybody need to know why what they did was totally illegal? No? Okay, we'll move on. When Shortcake approached traffic stopped at a light, he watched this week's Tesla behaving badly in his rearview mirror.
That Tesla man can't drive. That Tesla man can't drive.
The driver of a white Model X turned onto the street and cut off a minivan, forcing the driver into the other lane to avoid rear-ending the Tesla. Shortcake wanted to shout out his wife, who said, "This is going to Wham Bam." This submitter spotted this week's Tesla behaving badly, who experienced some instant justice after rolling through not one, but 2 stop signs.
That Tesla man can't drive. That Tesla man can't drive. That Tesla man can't drive. That Tesla man can't drive.
Our submitter kept driving after the hidden police officer pulled over the Tesla driver. He said, "Always come to a complete stop at a stop sign. You never know who's watching."
Wham, bam, we got a Patreon man. Please support the show.